Hey everybody, welcome back to Tim Travels. It's Terry, your host, coming to you from a very rainy Knoxville, Tennessee. So, I don't know where I left off last time, but I picked up a load in Waterloo. I do know. So, after the video that took forever to load up, the last one I did, and my friend Paul tells me it's because I got an iPhone 8. I'm like, dude, I got the latest technology. Because I don't know. Anyway, so I left. I left Minooka, went over to Waterloo, Iowa, to Tyson, and I got there right at the end of my window, but the trailer was loaded. I took that load to Miami, Florida. That load paid right around $5,000. I got a little bit of detention, I guess, for the wait with Tyson. So a little bit of detention, but paid right around $5,000. And then, and I'll come back to this in a second, but I got an immediate pre-plan with basically an immediate pickup. Like, I had just enough time to get a trailer washed out and get it fueled and get it over to this drop and hook. But and that load I just delivered in Midway, Tennessee. And I actually am repowering a load right now. I just met up with a driver here in Knoxville at the Pilot. I think we're exit 398 maybe, off of 40. My fleet manager called me and said, hey, can you repower this load because this driver needs to get home, and because she has a dental appointment like tomorrow morning. So this load's going down to Columbus, Georgia. I've been trying to get out to Springfield because I need to do some training. And then I'm loath to mention this because I don't want to jinx anything. But hopefully while I'm out there, I will be getting a TNT trainee on the truck. And I'll talk more about that later. So this day in history, today's the 27th. Yeah, I think today's the 27th. So this day in history, in 1822, the greatest American general ever was born. Ulysses Simpson Grant was born in Point Pleasant, Ohio. Now, there's a couple of Point Pleasants. Actually, the Point Pleasant he was born in is close to Cincinnati. It's down on the Ohio River. But yeah, Ulysses S. Grant, who then became the 18th president. And, Grant was actually a pretty dang good president, too, as presidents go. There was some scandal during his administration, but he wasn't involved in it. It was kind of his underlings. I talked one time about Schuyler Colfax, who was his vice president, who was involved in the Credit Mobilier scandal. But anyway, Grant born this day, 1822. On this day in 1927, which is the year my father was born, Coretta Scott King was born in Marion, Alabama. I will say this about Mrs. King. I didn't realize what a huge role she played in the civil rights movement. I often saw pictures of her and Martin Luther King Jr. and sometimes their children, and she just looked like this, this strong, attractive woman who was, backing her husband. But she was really involved in the civil rights movement, and if you ever get a chance to visit the King Center in Atlanta, which is right down the street from Ebenezer Baptist Church, actually both the new and the old Ebenezer Baptist Church, the one that MLK and his father both preached in, is no longer the actual church of that congregation. They have a newer church across the street, but you can go in Ebenezer Baptist Church and look around. It's pretty cool. And like I said, the King Center is there. You know, it's worth a visit. I learned a lot about Dr. King and about Coretta Scott King, and it was enlightening, and how accomplished they were and stuff. Did you know that Martin Luther King Jr. won an Emmy Award? No, what am I saying? Not an Emmy, a Grammy. He won a Grammy Award for the spoken word. He did a record, I guess, of his "I Have a Dream" speech. I don't know why this is doing this, because it's dark out, but anyway. And then also on this day in 1932, you know him, you love him, America's Top 40, Casey Kasem was born on this day in 1932. So, yeah, 3 important people. I won't sing the American Top 40 jingle, but keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars. That's all I can say. Okay, so I'm going to be brief today, which I know is a shock. And by the way, if you watch my videos and you're like, oh, these videos are too long, then I don't know, watch them in pieces, or maybe just listen to them. But, you know, putting comments like this video is too long, that does not deter me from doing long videos. Like, I like comments, but that comment's not useful. You know, if you can add something to the conversation, that's fine. I mean, and, you know, maybe it's a product of the fact that everybody's used to these short little sound bites. Like even news channels, they tell you one little thing and then they don't talk about, you know, they don't go in depth in the subject. Maybe that's why there's a lot of people that, you know, can't stand NPR or something like that, because, or, you know, All Things Considered, or, you know, shows where they do longer reports. Another one like is what's the one on PBS? I'll think of it later, but it's like this news magazine, but they only cover one subject in the whole time. Somebody will know it, but and they always have really good reporting. So Frontline, that's the name of it, Frontline, PBS Frontline. Anyway, I wanted to talk about fleet managers. And, you know, there's lots of videos out there about fleet managers and stuff. But, you know, it's kind of funny, because I was talking with Lyle over at No Hippie Trucking and Transportation, and I said, you know, I was going to get a trainee. But I expressed that I was concerned that the market is tight, and would I be getting enough, you know, would I be moving enough to justify having a trainee on the truck? And, you know, his comment to me, because we have the same fleet manager, his comment to me is, hey, you know, he named our fleet manager, he'll take care of you. And, you know, that's kind of the truth, right? Like when he said it, I mean, instinctively I kind of know it, but it's nice to hear somebody else expressing that. And, you know, I've seldom had a disagreement with my fleet manager about anything. And getting back to that trip that I made to Miami, candidly, I was concerned that even though the trip going to South Florida paid well, that I was going to end up stuck down there for a day and a half and then have to take a load of orange juice or something out of there. It turns out, though, that I was kind of wrong about that. But I want to illustrate what happened. So I had a load that I had a delivery time of 6, but the people don't even get there until 6. And then there was another prime truck that was ahead of me. So he got unloaded first, and then I got unloaded, and I was finished getting unloaded by 9 a.m. And then, you know, I was like, okay, well, this trailer's kind of nasty. I need to find a place to wash it out. So the first thing I did is I went went out to a pilot, and man, Miami, the whole area it is painful to drive a truck in. There's really no places to go park. Like the pilot I went to, I had to park out on the street, and even people, like, if there was a truck, I think they had maybe three fuel lanes. If there was a truck in the fuel lane, another full-size truck could not even get off the street. And then it wasn't actually a pilot, it was just pilot fuel. And, you know, like, there were literally 2 crappers in the whole place. I don't believe there are any showers. I kind of feel like, you know, why is Pilot even putting those locations on the app? You know, or at least not saying, hey, just FYI, this place is pretty much a crap hole that only has one thing that truckers need, which is fuel. I mean, they have food, but it's not a regular Pilot, you know? So then, while I'm going out there, I get this dispatch and my window for a drop and hook is 14:30 to 15:30. So then I find a washout, which is actually at a different Pilot, although this different Pilot is the same kind of sketch setup, and the washout just happens to be some guys next door. So I go out there. It didn't take too long to get a washout. I got the reefer fueled, and then I headed down to the 01. Now, here's where it gets crazy. My fleet manager made sure that I had a very, very quick turnaround in Miami. However, the 01 had a different idea. But that's not on my fleet manager, right? My fleet manager's trying to keep me moving. And by the way, I already had a pre-plan before I got to my 90 here in Tennessee. But what happened is, he called me, he said, hey, can you do this repower to help this other driver out? But, you know, once I got there, they're like, oh, the load's not ready, come back at 5. I went back at 5, come back at 7, come back at 9. It was chaotic. Everybody was nice, but it was chaotic. It was a plant company, you know, like live plants. So finally I just gave up because none of the phone numbers worked. I just gave up, went to sleep, woke up in the morning. When they finally showed back up, I was like, hey, is my load ready? And they're like, yeah. And I had a huge window. I had a 24-hour window drop and hook at the 90, so I didn't worry about it. But, you know, my life is easier because I have a good fleet manager. And I've talked about fleet manager, driver managers over time, you know, in several different videos. And one of the things I will say, though, is that you can't expect all the time that your fleet manager is going to be able to take care of you in the way you want. And sometimes you have to make sure that you ask. My son's fleet manager took care of him and put something on this week's settlement for him without even being asked. But I did tell my son, I said, hey, call him on Monday, see what your fleet manager says about putting it on this week's settlement. But my fleet manager, if I ask for something, 9 times out of 10, I get it. And, you know, from everything I could tell, notwithstanding that you know, loads are tight, I've been doing okay. I really don't have any complaints. I think I was telling somebody today that I have visibility to like 7,200 plus for this upcoming settlement. You know, the check is in the mail type of thing. And that includes 785 from last week, and that was the one load I had when I came out of home time. But even without that $785 load, which by the way was high dollar for the mileage, you know, I still would have been doing okay. I mean, I was in the hole last week, like $1,200, but that's to be expected because technically nothing went on the last week's settlement, which is actually my fault because I just forgot what day it was and I turned the report in late. So anyway, I swear. Anyway, do your best for, you know, do your best, and that'll be doing the best for your fleet manager. In other words, if you're not difficult to deal with, you don't have service failures, you're not putting the truck in the ditch, you're not being a hassle to them, my experience tells me that they will make sure that you get taken care of as best they can. Now, I want to, you know, there's something to be said for a driver training their fleet manager. If your fleet manager makes a mistake and it's something that you've seen it in the past or you could have anticipated because of your experience as a driver, don't be afraid to tell them about it. Because look, honestly, when my fleet manager was calling me today, I was like, he almost never calls me unless I'm in trouble, right? But I was like going through stuff in my mind as I'm getting ready to answer the phone. I'm like, did I do something wrong? And I knew he had sent me some messages, but I thought, well, I'll just read them when I stop. But he was calling to really like speed up the process to make sure that I could repower this load. And so, you know, I'm pretty confident that when I get down to Columbus, Georgia tomorrow and get this delivered at 9 o'clock in the morning, you know, I'll have a pre-plan by noon, and, you know, it'll probably be a load that pays as well as he can come up with. That also gets me out towards Springfield. So, you know, that's my message. If you got a good fleet manager, you got a good driver manager, be good back to them. It's a symbiotic relationship. If you have one that needs to be trained, put the time in to train them, because it'll put money in your pocket eventually. And if you have one that's terrible, document it, right? Take screenshots of the messages that you send back and forth. Because they want all the communication to be via message. Well, that's a benefit to you too. So if there's a problem, screenshot it, and keep all those messages. And then if you have to make your case to higher authority, and by the way, I have gone above my fleet manager's head in the past, not because my fleet manager really screwed up anything, but because I knew that it wasn't him that was causing the problem. But then when the problem got rectified, it was like some vice president in ops and my fleet manager on the phone. So even if you have a problem, that's not your fleet manager, but it's out of their control, like it's sales or something, don't be afraid to go above their head, because they're busy and they don't sometimes have a lot of time to advocate for you up the chain of command and then across the chain of command, right? So there are these silos, as you've heard, in companies, right? And my guy who's down here in the middle, right, he can't go across to his peer. He has to go up the silo and out. In order for him to go up and out, he's got to get his boss involved. So don't be afraid to involve your boss. Like all of the email addresses and stuff for like reefer ops and all those people that are in charge of things, it's on the company's website. Not on the driver portal necessarily, but the actual website. Like even Robert Lowe's email address, I think, is on there. But anyway, and by the way, if you ever do that, like I I've done like twice, I think, maybe once. When I got on the phone with ops, with the senior ops guy, I mean, the first thing out of my mouth was how happy I was with my fleet manager. I wanted him to know right up front, I don't have an issue with my fleet manager, but I got an issue with how things happen that are out of the control of my fleet manager. And, you know, my fleet manager knows I think highly of him, because I feel like he supports me. So, you know, it's like I said, it's a two-way street. Anyway, be safe out there. I don't know what's going to happen, but, you know, I think if everybody just hangs in there and works hard, it'll eventually benefit everybody. So I will talk to you soon.